So we're going to rehydrate a bit of the beef stew. What I'm going to get right now is one of the bags out of, it's the bin behind here. I have to check my data sheet. So it's all on the computer, but we keep a printout in case we have a computer crash or can't get the computer to function for whatever reason. We always have a hard copy. So we have our oldest beef stew is in the bin behind this one. We'll get that out and get ready to rehydrate that as a demo. And you can see I had to cross things out because originally this was going to have apples in it, but I must have run out of apples. Again, it's 5.25 years ago. I don't know what it was then. Also, back then we did a much bigger bag. So this is 5 cups of stew. Now we usually do 2 cups at a bag. That way we don't have a bunch of leftovers. With 5 cups, I'll have enough for today and some for tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and use this big bag of beef stew. Going to rehydrate one of the bags of 5-year-old, 5.5-year-old? A little over 5-year-old, 5.25-year-old beef stew. And 5 years ago we were bagging our items in much bigger bags. So this is a 5-cup bag. Now we do mostly 2-cup bags and even some 1-cup bags so that they're ready for a per person bag or serving and ready to go. This one's 5 cups. We'll get this one rehydrating and then we'll be checking in on it a little later. Hey, this is one of our 2 oldest bags of beef stew that we still have left. It was from December of 2017, so about 5.25 years old now. It originally weighed 1,311 grams, and now it's only 227, and it needs just a little bit less than 1,100 grams. Now, one of the things about the older ones is I didn't take into account the fact that, well, I did take into account. I knew that the cornstarch thickener that I was using wasn't going to hold up with freezing and thawing, but I didn't really know any other thickeners at the time. So now I've been using the instant clear gel when I go to rethicken it and rehydrate it. So I'm going to add that to this bag before I dump it out. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of the instant clear gel per cup. So I'll put 5 teaspoons in this bag and kind of shake it around before I empty it into the pot. So I'll get that cut open. And with the older ones, they didn't have the zipper, but it is a nice heavy bag. So I'll get the oxygen absorber out. Now I'll add 5 teaspoons. So with that in there, I'll kind of shake it around a little bit. So I'll just kind of roll that over. All right. Then I've got the water to go with that. That'll need at least a half hour or even an hour just on very low heat because unlike the commercial ones, the pieces are very big and so they definitely take longer to rehydrate. So I'll put the lid on that and put it on the stove on a very low heat just to keep everything nice and warm, and then we'll come back and check it. So I let this heat for about an hour. And on very low, so it was barely 140 degrees. So I just turned it up a little bit. But with these bigger pieces, these much bigger pieces than the commercial ones use, it does take longer to rehydrate. And if you had boiling water and then insulated it to keep it hot, you could probably do it in 15 minutes, well, probably a half hour, 45 minutes. Otherwise, it's going to take a while when you have the big pieces. But the carrots are pretty well rehydrated. You can see they're about 5/8 of an inch cubes, and they're pretty well rehydrated. The potatoes I believe when 5 years ago, I think we were only using russets, and I think the Yukon Golds and the red potatoes are a better choice, but they're just about perfect rehydration now. The beans are good. So all the components seem like they're pretty good now. And the thickness of the sauce is good. So everything came out well. Again, that's a little over 5 years old. And a couple days ago, we finished some of the peas that we had from clear back at batch 4. These are peas from almost 6 years ago now, more than 5.5 years ago. And we had a few of them left over from dinner a couple of days ago. The peas I'm adding here are the leftovers from one that I'd rehydrated in an earlier video. At the time, I said they'd only be on the counter for hours or maybe days. Well, it ended up being almost 3 months before I finally used them. Used them a couple of days ago for dinner, and then these are the last of them that were left over from dinner. So I'm going to add those to the stew. But this is only going to be sitting on our counter for hours or days. So we'll be using this right away. So I'm going to go ahead and add those to it.
Taxi!
Thought this would be a nice addition to the stew. And then that's ready to serve up for dinner. It came out quite nice. It does take a lot longer to rehydrate if you leave the cubes big. I recommend most of the time what we do is we decide what we're going to have for dinner. We put it with cold water and put it in the refrigerator in the morning for the evening meal. And for some things, we'll put it in the refrigerator overnight so that it's ready for breakfast or lunch the next day. That way you don't have to worry about the time as much. Okay, came out well. We'll be seeing the other batches of beef stew soon. So I'm honestly not sure what more I can tell you. All the components are fine. It's pretty much the same as it went into the bag 5 years ago. It is a slightly different recipe than the last ones you saw me do on the video because we have changed our recipes slowly over time. Like that last one had a lot more beef in it. All right, so we'll see you on the next thing.